Good day. President Trump will be celebrating his 79th birthday with a parade by the American military. This will be following in the tradition of countries like China, Russia, and North Korea that normally celebrates important days. They keep aside important days to celebrate the might and strength of their militaries. In President Trump's own case, it is on his birthday. This is novel. It has never been a tradition in America to have military parades. But in President Trump's reckoning, America is a great military power that has been involved in two world wars and helped win those wars. And for that reason, America should have a parade of as he calls it, the greatest military in the world. Good day and welcome. Welcome to my channel, Ebima Mungo's Perspective on Global Affairs. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe. And if anything I say or if the views I express here resonates with you, please leave your own opinions in the comment section. Like and share. While he was on the campaign trail, President Trump, then a candidate Trump, said and put himself forward that if he had been president, the Ukraine-Russia war would not have happened. And in his new iteration now as a president, 47th president, he has cast himself in the mold of wanting to find peace between Ukraine and Russia. Peace and negotiation is something he has been able to achieve. He has also tried to make peace with the Iranians by trying to get the Iranians to negotiate and get back a peace program with the Iranians. But all this was a cloak. While he was doing all this, President Trump was also supervising and overseeing two very serious events that may have led to and escalated to nuclear wars. The first being Ukrainian attack on 5 air bases within Russia that almost took out a significant amount of the Russian bombing fleet in their nuclear triad. He, after 2 days, gave a statement that America was not involved in that and that in that plan and that plot, but the Russians are not convinced. Since it was a plan and plot that was hatched over 18 months, it's certain that the CIA was involved, the British MI6 was involved, and it is also speculated that the Israeli Mossad was involved. But if anything has come to show that President Trump is being duplicitous in his actions or his prompting for peace, it will be the one with Iran and Israel. He had put forward a semblance of not getting along with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, while at the same time, even though he was saying strong words against the Iranians, he was also trying to make peace with the Iranians and find a diplomatic pathway so that the Iranians will end their nuclear program. His envoy, Steve Witkoff, had several rounds of meetings with the Iranian Foreign Minister Aragachi, and it was expected, it was thought that a relationship was being built there. But over time, that relationship broke down. And while all these negotiations were going on, Israel, the CIA, the Mossad, and the British and the French, as we have come to learn, were planning an extensive decapitation strike against Iran that manifested a few days ago with Israeli attack in Iran. Over the course of these past 2 days, there's been exchanges, damages, missiles from Iran flying into Israel and missiles from Israeli planes flying into Iran and damaging stuff. It has escalated tensions in the Middle East to a point that nobody has seen. Now, the Saudis, the Bahrainese, the Qataris, they are all worried and they are all reaching out to President Trump to try and find a way to impress upon the Israelis to tamper to stop their operations. But this operation is escalating. We now have almost what is certainly going to be a regional war. So what has this shown? That while he puts on the cloak of a peacekeeper, President Trump is nothing more than the warmongering NEOCON that most American presidents have tended to be. From George Bush, the first, who went into first to Afghanistan and also found a way to segue into Iraq, to even Obama, who found a way to bomb Syria and starts a process of destabilizing Syria, to Biden, who prompted the war in Ukraine. The American presidents of late have been great purveyors of the war industry. They have been very good at it. And now, even though we had thought that this one president was averse to war, we now see that we are at the very threshold of a new war. The Israeli-Iran crisis and war, it's actually leading into a war now. It's escalating. But it's not just the escalation that is the real fear now. It's the revelation that America's diplomacy is not to be trusted. It's now two-faced. They may be talking to you with one face, and they're planning to harm you with the other face. That's happened with Putin, where the Russians and the Americans were having discussions, and yet there was a major plan against Russia going on. President Trump has actually denied that he was involved in it. There's deniability. But suppose now the Russians had acted irrationally and done something very rash and escalated to a point where they took action against not only Ukraine, who they have been pounding with several missile barrages and drone attacks, but also the British, who they find 100% complicit, as Sergei Lavrov has said. Or even, what if they had identified they had chosen not to be diplomatic about how they are referencing America's involvement in that plan? But what I'm saying is, what if somehow there had been some irrational action by the Russians under Putin now? Because let's not forget that there are strong voices in Russia who want action, decisive action taken against Ukraine, because Russia still owns the largest nuclear stock in the world, 7,000 warheads. Some are strategic, some are tactical. It doesn't take anything for them to take out anybody they want to take out, but there's been restraint, and they've kept this war within the confines of conventional weaponry. But what if that action had prompted something so decisive, so to the point where America may be forced to escalate, do something irrational? And even as that has been tampered and cooled down, the Russians are slowly working their way into a retaliation. Nobody knows what form of retaliation they will mete out. What all the rounds that they've been doing to Ukraine recently is supposed to be retaliation for what they term terrorist actions, where Ukrainian special services damaged a lot of their train system, their infrastructure, their energy system. They stepped up asymmetric actions, which the Russians call terrorist actions, against Russian assets within Russia. But what if something much more potent, a reaction had been taken by now we'll be talking of the war in a different scale. But now going to the Israeli-Iranian war now that is unfolding. The Israelis were taking action and planning with the French, the British, and the Americans at a time that Steve Witkoff was meeting with the Iranians, lulling them into the belief that even though the Israelis had been making all attempts to strike at Iran, that no, that the president of America was holding them off. And when this event finally happened, it was the first person to gloat over it, was the same president who we all know as our attempt peace president. And that president is President Donald Trump. He gloated over it and said, those people who stood in the way of peace negotiations are all dead. He knew about it. We have given the Israelis a lot of weapons. Of course, we know that America continues to arm Israel. Israel has had a very extensive campaign against Hamas. They've had a very, very extensive and destructive campaign against the people of Palestine, the people of Lebanon, the Houthis, and the people of Syria. It's been war for the Israelis. They've defined themselves with war in the recent times, but they've never seen this kind of reaction as the reaction that the Iranians are giving them now. And even as I make this video, they are now attacking mutually hydrocarbon assets that they own. The Israelis have damaged a refinery, attacked a refinery that is in blaze now, and then the Iranians have also damaged Israeli gas infrastructure in Haifa. It's escalating and escalating, and as Benjamin Netanyahu has said, it is 14 days, and as the Iranian leader has said, they are not backing down. They too will continue to escalate just as Israel is. So where does this keep Trump? President Putin has had to call both parties, but they've been clear. He called Benjamin Netanyahu and he called the Iranian president, and he has been clear in statements at the United Nations that it is Israel that they hold accountable for being the aggressor in this event. The same too has been by the Chinese. The scenario here now is that if in one moment of miscalculation, this one critical asset is bombed and the Iranians take decisive action that may now expand into European countries, because as we are talking, Britain has moved fighter jets to their base in Cyprus because the Russians accuse them of providing avenue for the Israelis to refuel their plane. So they are involved. And the threat of Israel has made them bring warplanes closer. So now we are seeing a situation where it's almost like Israel against the collective West. This is a new playbook. It's an interesting playbook because President Trump has gone to familiar territory, more comfortable territory. What President Biden did in his own war was totally unprecedented. It's the first time since World War II, the end of World War II, or since the end of the Cold War, because during the Cold War, most of the wars between the major powers was being fought by proxy. But it was the first time that there was almost direct confrontation between America on one side, that is NATO, and Russia. So for the first time, there was peer-to-peer engagement in, if not in the militaries, but in the military armaments. So we were seeing Challenger tanks, Abrams tanks, Leopard tanks in the Ukraine war theater, and they were now being matched and blown up by Russian war assets. But this was the first time that they had come close to each other. We now saw Western equipment touted by magazines like Jane's and all to be the most cutting edge, being tested against Russian equipment, and they fell short. There's no nice way of saying it. The Storm Shadow, the ATACMS, and the all the weapon systems given to Ukraine are falling short. Even the Patriot missile, before they will even launch their missiles out, they'll be blown out by Iskander missiles of the Russians. We've seen the Russians develop weapon systems that have really frightened the West and made them admit now that they need to ramp up their weapons arsenal. So when we see this, that this is the first time that there was a peer-to-peer competitor between the West, NATO, and the Russians. And they got a black eye. They've lost that war. The Ukraine war is effectively lost because Ukraine, before the war started, Ukraine had lost only Crimea. But by the later part, as this war progresses, Ukraine has lost 4 provinces, 4 oblasts. And even as the war is progressing, Ukraine is calling for a ceasefire, but the Russians are still moving on. They have moved into Sumy and they're taking territory there. They are now in Zaporozhye and they're also moving into Dnipro. So now they are extending their wings on the battlefield, and it's moving and getting closer to the Dnipro River, and who knows how far they will move. And while all this is going on, it has become clear to neocons like Trump that you will never have called Trump a neocon, but if you surround yourself with neocons like Marco Rubio, like General Kelly, and all the other people in his cabinet who have been identified as neocons, people who believe in American hegemony and exceptionalism way above every other person. And then you must be thinking that it means that you want that kind of thought process to be prevailing and to shape policy within your government. So there is no doubt about it. President Trump has been colored and unmasked and shown to be that he is a warmongering neocon, just like every other American president that has come before him. And we are going to see more days of war. In his early days of presidency, he has almost decisively escalated the war in Ukraine into a nuclear one, and he has helped facilitate a confrontation in the Middle East now that is almost certainly going to be a regional war. We really don't know where these things are going. And while he's doing that, he's touting his new credentials as a military leader that is powerful and respected by having army parades and military parades. America is seeing almost a different president, different in his methodology, but the same in his warmongering rhetoric. And we are in for a long ride. We don't know where this is going to go. We just hope that somehow reason will come back to the Middle East and to the larger world, and we can have some period of peace and growth. This is where I end my video. If you have any thoughts about what I've just expressed here now, put it in the comment section. And if you like and you're new to this channel, subscribe and like and share. Thank you. See you in the next video.